I think I was so lost when I was younger because I was like, oh, there's no one that's like queer. There's no one that's like, Latino like me. And especially in my major, I was just like, I don't see anyone that looks like me. And so I think it's very detrimental when people are saying, well, we need more people to care about the environment. Okay, well, then we need to really talk about homophobia, transphobia, racism. What is the issue that prevents people from entering this environmental career industry? I think for me, it's just about reclaiming that.
Isaiah Hernandez is an environmental educator and the creator of QueerBrownVegan, an Instagram page where they use colorful graphics, illustrations, and videos to educate about environmentalism and the climate crisis. Isaiah, thank you so much for joining me today on Shining a Light.
Yeah, thank you so much again for having me.
So in some of your earlier posts, you wrote about climate justice as well as environmental racism. To frame this conversation, would you mind defining climate justice and environmental racism and speaking to how they intersect?
Yeah, so I think for so long when we talk about climate justice, I think it was believed it was first coined by E.J. Org here in New York City. They kind of described it being a social, racial, environmental, and economic issue. And so what it was saying is that we cannot really separate the protection of the planet from people. And so climate justice for me really allowed me to make these interconnections of not only how race and the environment matter, but looking at policies through an economic side also affects them. And when we talk about environmental racism, I think that it kind of, for me, the easiest way I understood it is that when we look at policies and practices that disproportionate affect Black and Indigenous people of color due to their location. So that means that if you live in affordable housing units, you're more likely to live in a toxic facility or some type of traffic freeway. And so when you take away parts of my community, it's not that it's being completely destroyed, but it's being harmed. And so how do we really reconcile with the fact that we're fighting against these larger entities of white supremacy that is really instilled in many of these systems?
Yeah, you wrote in a post, to choose to continue staying silent on injustices while preaching about loving and caring for the planet doesn't show any allyship. It just shows that you center your needs over planetary care. My question to you is, what steps should environmentalists take to ensure they're being inclusive in their learning and truly being allies?
Learning history. I don't think anyone has ever died from learning about racism or slavery or colonialism. I had never heard that someone has died. But I think that when it comes to extending yourself to become a better ally for the planet, is that you need to recognize that you cannot really stay apolitical for your community while meanwhile saying like, oh, you care about these communities and you only post about it when there's so many people talking about it, which is performative. And then number two is like having those tougher conversations, especially allies. Like we all have family members that have said problematic things. Like we love them to death, but there's times we need to educate them. So I think instead of people asking themselves like, oh, I have to do so much to become an ally, it's like, it's not really centered on the planet. It's just centered about your needs and the profit that that brings for you when you talk about the planet.
So yeah, in one of your posts, you answered the question, is it challenging to go vegan? And my innate response to that is yes. Like I'm vegan from here to the next taco truck. So I want to hear what you have to say and hopefully change my mind.
I think asking yourself, like, what are the current barriers that you see? Like, is it the fact that profit? Like, is it the fact that you don't know how to cook recipes that are vegan? Do you not know, what to buy? Do you not know what to do with these types of fruits and vegetables? And the fourth thing is to also recognize, like, okay, like, is it the fact that you just like eating non-human animals? And if so, then you should just say, like, I like eating non-human animals.
Yeah, maybe if the checkout line of every grocery store, if you had to make a pledge and say, I enjoy eating non-human animals to buy bacon, less people would buy it.
Yeah.
So it seems a big part of your platform focuses on educating about environmentalism, but also your identity as queer, brown, and vegan. Do you have any advice for young people coming to terms with their identity, and especially those whose voices have been systematically marginalized?
Yeah, I think that really it's hard to say, like, know yourself.
Okay, Drake.
Yeah. We're really unique in the way that we kind of navigate ourselves in this world. But I think for me, is really being unapologetic and staying true to yourself. Like, I think I was so lost when I was younger because I was like, oh, there's no one that's like queer. There's no one that's like, Latino like me. I just don't really know. I don't see anyone in me. And especially in my major, I was just like, I don't see anyone that looks like me. Like,
Mhm.
is this the wrong major? Like, am I not really good enough to be in these fields? And I think that it helps a lot of communities of color to know that, like, no, just because someone has a higher status or role than you does not excuse them from their racism or homophobia or transphobia. There's a lot of things that people need to be held accountable for. And so I think for me, it's just about reclaiming that. And I tell people always to trust yourselves better than others trying to say things about you online.
What is something young people could do right now to get started in climate change advocacy?
Yeah, I think that the most easiest thing for people that are younger to do is really look into the local organizations that exist or look into creating a high school club if you're in high school. Because something that I realized is that so many people have different passions, but I think that when we're younger we tend to follow the crowds, right? And I didn't advocate for myself, and so I tell people that just because you see other people being in activist spaces or they want to do this, like we need different people and different movements. So whether you're an artist, model, photographer, dancer, singer, poet, like we need different types of people in this movement. And so that's really the important thing about what I wanted to tell people is that you don't need to figure out what you want to do now, but as long as you're confident that you really don't want to do something, then you have the right to leave that space and create your own. And it's okay if it takes some time, and it's okay if you delve into these different spaces that you're just like, I'm interested about it, but not really like, down for it. Try it out, because I think that's what I realized is that at college I started to like listen to myself and being in spaces where I wanted to be and cared less about like what my friends were doing. I was like, I have my own interests and I have my own passions and goals, and I'm going to follow them and focus on what I really love.
All right. Lastly, what is your favorite vegan restaurant in Brooklyn?
Ooh, Toad Style. So when I first moved to New York City, I lived off of Ralph Avenue Station off the C train. And
Mhm.
so for me, it was actually two streets down where I noticed how gentrification has been such an issue in those areas.
Mhm.
And I saw this vegan restaurant, it's Black owned, and I went in and they have really great sandwiches or like burgers and things like that. Yeah, I really love that part of Brooklyn because I think that that was really my really first intro to experiencing that, but also the privilege I had to be able to like support businesses in that area.
Amazing. Toad Style. Check it out, everybody. Who said it? AOC versus David Attenborough. Hope is not something that you have. Hope is something that you create with your actions.
I kind of want to say David Attenborough.
AOC.
Oh my God, what? Okay, yeah. So I follow AOC on Twitter too, so I'm really disappointed in myself because I joined her live streams when she has them. So I'm like,
Many individuals are doing what they can, but real success can only come if there's a change in our societies and in our economics and in our politics.
ooh, that's such a good one. Oh my God. I think I do want to say AOC, but I'm gonna say David Attenborough.
You're right. You got the curveball.
Okay,
Congrats.
yes, yes.
We need to start communicating that this is a global struggle. And it's not about what is Sweden doing and what is the US doing. It's about what all of us are doing as one movement.
I want to say AOC.
Got it. And lastly, an understanding of the natural world and what's in it is a source of not only a great curiosity, but great fulfillment.
Oh my God, I keep thinking like this conservation mindset. I'm gonna go with David Attenborough.
Nailed it. Congrats.
Awesome, yeah.
Very good. Isaiah, thank you so much for being our activist of the week.
Yes, thank you so much again, Sean, for having me.